Streets 993, your choice of hip hop and R&B. DJ C-Dub is up in here, and I got this man. He's not a stranger to us, and if you don't know who he is, you need to go look at the other videos, all right? I got my man Terrence Blakesley is here from the Shepherd Lumber Yard out there in Columbia, who is here giving us some information, and we're going to be talking about home improvement and DIY things you can do to protect your biggest investment. Your home, okay? You can do it, you can do it. On the show today, we're going to talk about windows. I know some of you guys might not know much about windows, how important windows are, and how important they are to your energy bill. But we're going to talk about that today. How you doing, Mr. Terrence?
Doing great. It's a wonderful day to be in the neighborhood at the show Build with Blake, and we're going to drop some more knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to empower the community today.
That's what we're doing on the show. Building with Blake on the show today. We're talking about windows, and I want to go ahead and get off into it. Can you explain the difference between various windows materials like vinyl, wood, aluminum, and fiberglass, and all their respective benefits?
Great question. And what I would first like to do is set the tone of the mindset.
Okay.
And the mindset is you living in your home, and wherever a window is, that's a hole in the home.
Mm-hmm.
That's a hole. Let's let that sink in for a minute. That's a hole in the home. So
cut the wood out of the area.
It's a hole.
Yeah.
And so whatever you place in there, whether it's plastic, a sheet of plywood, its job, or a window, its job is to keep the elements out and keep your heat and or air conditioner on the inside.
Right.
Because you're not trying to heat the outside and you're not trying to cool the inside. So with that thought process and that premise, let's dive into windows.
Okay.
So whatever window that you put in there, its job is supposed to perform a job.
Mm-hmm.
And that job is to keep the elements out
on the outside
and keep your heat and cooling there on the inside.
Okay.
If it's not doing its job, then it's costing you money every single day, 365 days a year. Let's dive into the different types of windows. So with windows, you have new construction and you have replacement windows.
Okay.
So new construction windows are essentially windows that when the house is first being built, they put new construction windows. And essentially what those are windows that have nail and fins or flanges on them, so they nail up to your exterior siding before you put your finished siding, studs, things of that nature. Replacement windows, quick, fast, is if you have a window that's already there, that window goes bad, you pull the existing window out of the frame and put this replacement window in there. So your drainage, your drip caps, things of that nature, your ledges, is all remains intact. So what are the different types? Years ago, wood windows were king. But the problem with wood windows, and you'll be challenged to find a complete wooden window anymore, is that when any type of water penetration breaks inside of that wood window starts to disintegrate. Now we'll talk about wooden clad windows here in a moment. So the main window that is being put in all the homes now are vinyl. Why is that? Less maintenance, things of that nature. You can pick them in all different types of colors now. When I first came on the scene, you could basically just get white, and then you could get a few years later, maybe a beige cream color, but now you can get them in any type of color virtually that you want made out of vinyl. Now here is the deal. Looking at every single house that has a white vinyl window, you don't know if it's a cheap window or a good window. Yeah. Why? Because they're all white. Right. Or they all black.
Right.
You don't know where that window come from. The main thing is, especially if you're buying a new house or getting a replacement window, is research the vendor. Because there are a lot of fly-by-night window companies that make windows for a hot minute, then go out of business. So if your window breaks down and you're looking for someone to call, number one, most window companies do not put their stamp of the business on the window. So you don't even know who to call to claim the warranty. So that's number one.
Oh my goodness.
Number two, there are various types of degrees of vinyl that they make it out of, whether extruded vinyl, welded vinyl, things of that nature. So a lot of that the customer can't control. But especially if they're buying a new construction house, they're really at the mercy of did the builder really feel generous in putting a good window in there.
Right.
Now, a lot of the some of the builders, they'll actually put the name or keep the sticker on the windows until the customer moves in. Those are good. They're proud of it. It's probably a higher quality window, things of that nature, but research it. But what can you control? What can you control is the capacity that the window, the glass itself, allows penetration of UV rays, heat transfer, things of that nature. Now, this is on either a new construction or a replacement window, especially a replacement window. And what I would suggest that they at least, or when you're researching windows, does that window have low E argon up in it? You may be saying, what in the heck is low E?
What is that?
Low E argon. And what that is, and you'll see a lot of commercials. We don't live in the 70s no more, the 80s, where you run into single pane glass. Now they're at least double pane glass, and that's the number of pieces of glass inside the frame. Mm-hmm. You even see some that say triple pane. But I question some of the triple pane, just my humble opinion. The main thing that you should ask for is low E argon gas. And essentially what that is, in the manufacturing process, they shoot this gas up in there, in between the panes. So when the cold air and the heat is trying to penetrate your home, this low E argon blocks that and pushes it back out. Okay. And that's a huge savings on what's going on the inside of the house. If you do not have that and you just have a single pane, not a single pane, but a double pane glass, window may look fabulous. But what it is nothing that's combating and fighting the UV rays in the middle of the glass to push the heat out or the cold out. So at the very least, I would research, and if you have the ability, especially in replacement windows, is to see if you could get an added benefit of low E argon gas that's injected into that window. Doesn't cost a whole lot, may cost on the average anywhere, depending on the size of the window. But let's say your average size window. Like your average size window is 36 inches by 72 or 36 inches by 60 inches. You may be talking about an upcharge if you're purchasing new windows, maybe anywhere, depending on the name brand, $30 to $50 upcharge to get that low E argon gas. But essentially, you're saving a ton of money because this is what's fighting and protecting the inside of your home, the heat and the cold, every single day at your home.
Make sure you guys are getting. We are on here talking about this information. I'm learning something new every day. I come on here and talk to my man, Mr. Terrence. So make sure your windows, and if you're not, get somebody to come out there and look at your windows. Okay. When you got to talking about single pane windows, it made me think about living with my mom in her house, and
had to put that plastic on the windows.
Put the plastic on there
when it get cold.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I remember breaking a window and then having to use the putty stuff.
Absolutely, glazing.
The glazing and make it. I did all that. Man, I'm showing myself here. And then also the old school windows with the weight on the outside.
Yeah, the weights, sash weights.
Mm-hmm. I guess I'll say on the outside. Inside, but the outside
correct, right.
of the frame. I remember the wood windows always peeling.
Absolutely.
And my mama sent me out there to take the scraper and scrape them, try to get some paint thinner to get off of them,
right,
so you can repaint it again. Right. Mm-hmm. So when you got talking about layers and layers of paint on top of stuff, it made me think about that.
Absolutely.
What are the most popular type of windows that homeowners are choosing for their properties today?
In your mid-level homes, vinyl is king. But then you step up to individuals still want a wood window. In a lot of instances, especially in your higher priced homes. And again, you'll be hard to find someone that'll do a complete wood window because they got to put a huge warranty on there. So they're not cheaply made because most individuals, including myself, especially if you got a 2-story house, is not going to go on the outside every single year, scrape, caulk, and repaint. So what did they come out with to combat that and also still cater to those individuals that want the wooden look? It's a few options. Various companies put out what they call a clad window. And essentially what that is a wood window. And on the outside, it's either aluminum clad or vinyl clad. And so it's a wood window. And what they do is cover the outside that gets all the elements in vinyl or aluminum. And you can get virtually any color. But if looking from the inside of the house, because a lot of individuals want that stained wood look, that natural feel, things of that nature. On the inside of the house, it shows a wooden window. Okay. So those windows and options are out there. Now, another one is out there here recently, the last few years, are they making a composite material, just like the composite decking. So it gives the wood look, but not the maintenance of a wooden window and the breakdown of a wooden window, because there's a lot of movable parts in a window. And again, water is in a wooden window is the number one enemy. I can't tell you how many jobs I went to, and the water penetrated the wood window, and what it did was once it broke through the window, the seal, it starts getting in between the walls, the studs, sheetrock, mold, floor, and before you know it, this whole wall is rotted out because of the wood window that allowed the water penetration to get through. And so those are some options that you have. If you still want, number one is vinyl. Number two, if you want to step up a little bit, wood window, vinyl clad or aluminum clad. And then they also have a composite. So those are the basic few categories when you're picking out windows is as far as choices. Now, here's the other thing that you really got to be careful upon. And this is to each owner, designer, usability. I've been through numerous of houses, and I just caution individuals with this. Individuals that say, hey, I want a trapezoid window, or I want this type. If you go by houses and it's a picture window and it looks like an odd shape that sits like up in the roof and things of that nature. So there's different configurations as far as windows. Understand, when you move outside of the realm of a standard size window, even in a picture window, at some point, those windows are going to have to be maintained or changed. And when you start getting into trapezoids, ellipticals, and things of that nature, understand that manufacturers make their ellipticals and trapezoids at different measurements. So especially if you don't know the manufacturer and you have to go back up there and replace that, understand at some point, in a lot of instances, you have to take a print and a measurement, and it's a lot of work that goes into it to get that same exact window. Understand this as well. Some manufacturers go out of business. So if you got the trapezoid, the elliptical, things of that nature that's up on the second story, things of that nature, it's going to be a challenge to do that. Sometimes they don't make the same transom, elliptical, and things of that nature. I had a situation to where an individual needed to replace on a second level on a home that was made out of stucco. And so
made out of what?
Stucco.
Stucco.
Yeah, stucco. So the deal was that individual wanted those windows replaced, but the problem is, and it was some odd windows, the problem was that company was no longer in existence. And so the deal was had to go with a different manufacturer that made a smaller window. And so changing out that window went to what perceived to be a simple job into restucking the outside, reforming the inside of the wall, things of that nature to make the hole smaller, re-sheetrocking, re-trimming, just to replace that one window. And so you want to think about that as far as design and things of that nature, for especially if you plan on staying in the house for years down the line.
Okay. I remember a situation we had somebody cut a tree down, the tree swung and hit our window, and I was like, okay, I'm so sorry, cool. It's like, it's okay, cool. We went to Home Depot, and we could not find the right size window because this was an older house, and the window come all the way down here.
Absolutely.
And so you can't find that size, so we had to end up finding something smaller, but then they had to build. They had to build it to make it fit in the middle. That was kind of challenging to even look at that, but it's just. It was good to know. It was interesting to know that all windows are not the same.
There's no standard window.
The people who you think to get the windows might not be in business. So then you stuck like, okay, so let me ask you this. So what do you do if I guess the situation, like I just said, if they're out of business, do you change all the windows? Do you change all the windows in the front to make them look the same, or you just leave just one oddie-body window?
Here's the deal. In your particular situation, which would have saved you a lot of time, normally 99% of the time, in the instance when you had that broken window, normally what you should have put back in there was a replacement window. And nowhere in the big box stores, they're going to carry probably the replacement window that you need. Why is that? Because most of the manufacturers make the replacement windows on demand. Now, the big box stores, what they're going to carry as far as replacement windows is the normal size that they have the top 5 sales in. And that what they sell the most, that's what will be on the shelf. But when you're trying to replace the windows, 99.9% of the time, you have to take a measurement of the inside of that jamb and order it. They make them on demand. So you could have gotten a replacement window to slide up in that hole to fit that, to where all you had to do was screw the inside of it, slap that, put it in there, and keep going. Dang. But no one told you about that, and that's why I'm trying to inform individuals today. You have options. If you're looking for a replacement window, know that you have to order that window, because they make it to, if you need 53 and 3/8 inch wide, they're going to make it to that. If you need 60 and 3/4 inch tall, they're going to make that for that replacement window to go in your exact hole that you need to do. So they make it to the inch, fraction of the inch to that. And when you're ordering those windows, go to someone that's knowledgeable in that millwork, because what'll happen is when you're ordering that window, they'll ask the salesman whatever company that they're ordering from, whether it's rough opening size or exact size. And so that individual that you're ordering that window from should be asking you, now, is this the rough opening size or the exact size? And the customer should have the measurements. Now, what's the difference between rough opening size and exact size? Well, if it's a rough opening size, what the manufacturer do is cut it back somewhat so the window could fit in there. If you make it the exact same opening, it's going to be too big. Whether it's an eighth of an inch, it just won't fit. If you make it exact size, if you give it exact measurements, well, that individual probably took an allowance for that window to fit up in there. And a lot of the replacement windows, what will happen is you got to have that allowance, because a lot of them, they'll have insulation, a strip of insulation on all those jambs around that. So it's got to have enough room up in there so that insulation could go up in there and stop that air gap as well.
That's good. How do energy efficient windows contribute to reducing energy costs for homeowners, and what features should they look for in such windows?
Big time. Number one, low argon. What type of insulating factor is coming through the glass? The other thing is, open up the window and look at the seals, the weather stripping, that when you close the window, that it puts a tight seal on there. Look at the sides, on the rails, things of that nature. See what type of weather stripping. When you close that window and close the locks, it should have an airtight seal. Cheaper windows, over time, you're going to have some air coming through there. So those are the major things that you want to do. How much penetration, UV rate, and on the manufacturer's website or even on the sticker, wherever you buy your windows from, they should have that information. You should also be able to look at a display. How easy is it to open up? Most of these windows now, especially the better built ones, you can lift the window up with just one finger because of the system and the opening system that they have on there. If you struggling inside of the store before it's even in your house to open up the window, guess what's going to happen?
It's going to do the same when you get
at
home.
your house. So a window is not just a window. That's why I wanted to set the premise and the mindset of these are covering holes up in the house.
If you don't open your windows, you're not somebody who normally opens windows like that. Should you be thinking about all the stuff that we're talking about as well?
I'm one of them. I hardly ever open my window. Just a little bit during the fall and maybe the spring because the way our temperatures are. But you still should check those things. Now, will it wear out as quick? Maybe not. But the deal is you should be still checking them to see if there's any breakdown in the seals, things of that nature. One other thing I wanted to talk about is before we move on to the next question is single hung and double hung windows.
What's that?
Single hung and double hung windows.
HUNG?
HUNG and double hung
windows.
So the deal is in 90% of the houses, they'll put a single hung window in there. What that means is the top sash does not move. Only the bottom sash moves. So when you need to get air in the house, things of that nature, you just lift up the bottom sash. Double hung windows, especially if you're on a second floor, and especially if you're conscious about using, being energy efficient, things of that nature. What happens is on the double hung window, the top sash can slide down or it could tilt in. What's the purpose of that? Cleaning. If you're on the second story and you need to clean the window on your second story house and you got a single hung up there, guess what's going to happen to the top sash of that window? It's never going to get cleaned. So you want a double hung window so you could tilt that in and clean those windows as well. Another added benefit in that is, especially on milder days, you could open the sash up halfway, the bottom sash, and open up the top sash halfway. And what you'll create is a draft that's getting rid of the hot air and pulling in the cold air.
I never knew that.
So it's circulating through the house. See, that's old school stuff they used to do back in the day.
Oh, man.
So
I'm
a lot of folks
see if I got a double on mine.
Yeah, double hung window. If not, like I said, if you got a 2-story house and a single hung up there, that window probably never gets clean unless you get one of them hoses that you can shoot from the bottom or ladders. Things of that nature. So yes, if you have control over that. Now, most of the replacement windows, 99.9% of the time, you will have a double hung window.
Okay.
A double hung window where the top sash and the bottom sash open or tilt in.
Okay. What are some innovative window techniques or features that homeowners may not be aware of but could greatly benefit from?
I want to bring up a few. First and foremost, let me bring up innovative techniques. The low argon. Also, they do make a window tint for the exterior of your homes.
Okay.
So why do we put tint on our car?
To keep the heat from getting inside.
Keep the heat. And so there is technology out there where you could get tinted windows on your home. So if you've got sun that's just blaring in on the front of your house, things of that nature, so that's going to keep the inside temperature of your house regulated. Again, also pointed out, individuals that want the wood look and the wood feel, technology has come out to where they're making windows out of composite materials. So it's a wood resin type deal. Some of them you can still stain, you can paint, and it gives the look and the feel of a wood window. Also, technology has come out to where even on your vinyl windows, you can have one color on the inside and a different color on the inside, especially if you have grids. What? So you can have a black window with grids, GBG, that stands for grids between the glass. You can have black on one side, and then on the inside, you can have white, beige or whatever. So when you're looking out, you don't see black windows. You just see the beige windows.
Right.
But on the outside, from the appearance side from outside, it could be black, hunter green, or whatever, depending on the manufacturer that you
of the
have.
house and color.
Absolutely.
What factors should homeowners consider when selecting windows for different areas of their home, such as the bathroom, the kitchen, and the bedrooms? Are these all windows different?
Could be. Very well could be, because normally in a bathroom, depending on where the window is located, that's going to be a fixed window. And it's normally going to have a different type of glass on it where it's obscured. So what I mean by obscured is that, say for instance, it's a bathroom window and they can't see on the inside of the bathroom window while you're in there. So it's going to be like they could either have a water effect or a glazed effect.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay.
So you can't see on the inside. So very different from an actual bedroom window. Now, one of the major things, whether it's new construction or replacement windows, that you want to consider is the codes of, it's got to have, most places say you got to have 15 square feet, especially if you're up on top of the second level. Why is this window got to be so big? I'm used to having just a small window in there. Mm-hmm. One of the things you want to look at is your safety. If a fire breaks out, can you get out of that 24-inch by 36-inch window? And that's the only way.
Stuff like that,
can you get out of that window? Now, new construction windows, they have codes for that to alleviate in the case that happens. But if you're in the middle of replacing the windows in your house and going through all those windows, you may want to ask yourself that if a fire breaks out, can I get out of this window that's currently the size that's in my bedroom? And if you can't, you need to think seriously about that, of enlarging that window there. A little bit more work, but if it's on the verge of saving your life one day, may want to do that.
Okay. How do you ensure, and when I ask this question, I want you to think outside of the normal weather stripping, like you said. So how do you ensure proper installation of windows to maximize energy efficiency and prevent issues of air leakage or water infiltration coming in?
One of the ways, if it's new construction, let's talk about new construction first.
Okay.
A lot of folks don't know this, but when that window is put up, there's a such thing in a product called window tape.
Window tape.
And what happens is when that new construction window is put up and they nail or screw the window to the hole, whether it's directly in the stud on OSB plywood or whatnot, what needs to happen is a window tape needs to go over that entire flange, which covers the screws or the nails. Why is that? Well, when that wood expands and contracts and moves on your house, that tape there is alleviating whatever air penetration that could slip in through the windows. Mm-hmm. Another thing is, when you're talking about replacement windows, make sure that it's properly caulked. Make sure the trim is properly put back on. Look at your seal and see if there's any breakdown in that. A lot of times it was wooden seals, things of that nature. Now, if you got a wooden seal, you may have to call out a vinyl installer guy that can break that and cover it up with metal. The other thing is replacing it with a PVC seal. So the drip seal that's on the outside, things of that nature, because when water hits the window, it's got to go down and it's supposed to shed from the house. So if that's a wooden seal on the outside of your house there, and that breaks down, then that could fall into water could fall into your wall. Right. So you can replace that with new technology now, with they either make composite or PVC that'll shed that water off, costs a little bit more, but it doesn't break down like wood does.
Okay, that's good to know, man. Building with Blake, we on the show today talking about windows, what type of windows that you need for your house. Can you share some tips for homeowners on maintaining their windows to ensure longevity and optimal performance?
Making sure they clean, because dust could break down.
Wait a minute. A dirty window plays a role.
Absolutely, because the deal is, like we talked another episode back about dirt on your wooden fencing. If there's a dirt buildup that eventually gets into the mechanism of raising and lowering the window. Eventually, what can happen is it could throw it off track. It could seize up the mechanism, things of that nature. So opening up that window and cleaning out the inside of the window is paramount. The other thing is that cleaning the window will give you the opportunity to somewhat inspect the window. Is the glass breaking down? Things of that nature. Is the welds on a vinyl window coming apart? Also, are my locking mechanisms, because a lot of windows nowadays have a locking mechanism that has a night safety feature in it, to where what happens is if you raise that window and pop that night safety feature in it, and if you open that window up, let's say 6 inches, somebody can't come by and raise that window up even higher, because that night safety features on it. The clips that come on there. So there's a lot of things that you can do to make sure it's properly taken care of. But the main thing is, if you got wooden windows or wooden clad windows, things of that nature, even on the clad windows that I talked about earlier, as far as vinyl and aluminum clad, make sure as you clean those windows, make sure that that clad hasn't separated from the wooden window itself. If so, we need to do some caulking and things of that nature. And please don't use cheap caulk. If it's cost for silicone, spend a little bit more and get the 100% silicone, because a lot of those products there fight off against water penetration.
Are there any current trends in windows designs or architecture that homeowners should be aware of considering window placements or installation?
And the more, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, again, don't get crazy. And what I mean by crazy, it's one thing to bring a designer in and say, I want this elliptical, this half round, things of this nature, these odd color, odd sizes in your homes. But understand that one day they're going to have to be replaced. And I went into a house to where a few years back, and this was a pretty nice home, and they did that in this house, and the windows were breaking down, and she asked me to give her a price on these windows, and the price to replace all those odd shaped windows, ellipticals, transoms, things of that nature. And this was probably in an 8-foot area wall, and it was one of those windows where it was a quadruple mold together window, and it had a transom on top and ellipticals, things of that nature. It cost $20,000 to replace them windows. Now this was in, I would say, $1 million plus home. You know what she told me? Okay. I'd rather just take $20,000 off and make it be the next person's problem. See, you don't know until you get in there. Now that person had that problem because they were leaking. Yeah. But for her to get rid of it, she said, that's just too much. Yeah. That's just too much for me to invest in this particular time.
She's trying to move.
And that's not including the other windows in her. That was just on this one wall. Side. Yeah. One wall. And why was it so high? It's because this was a huge window that almost took up, if you could draw it in your mind, 8 feet. It was, the windows itself was about 6 feet. Then it had a transom on top of it. Then it had to paint the picture, 2 triangles up in the corners. Then it had a palladium over top. So, and it looked great when the house was first built. But what do? 20, 30, it took all, received all the sun. And they're going to have to be replaced, changed out, and maintained at some point.
Do people still get stained windows?
Stained glass?
Stained glass windows?
In a lot of I see it in the Nashville area as far, now, let me say this. In the Nashville area, I see a lot of the older homes may have a window or two. And the reason for it, I love stained glass windows.
Especially the half moon.
Right.
The half moon window.
The problem is there's only a few artisans, craftsmen, that even do the stained glass windows anymore. I know of one in Colombia, and I'm trying to get that individual to teach me what they know. so there's two of them. And the deal is just not that many individuals that's able to do it. Two, the deal is we're in a time where I want it right now, and that type of work takes time. and it's not cheap to do that as well. So that sector is falling into the realm to customers that know what it is, that's what they want, and appreciate the art that individuals are doing it in.
Okay. Are there any common misconceptions or myths about windows that are often that you encounter in your line of work?
All windows are not the same. They may look the same, may smell the same, but they're not the same. And that's where you have to break down and really look at the window structurally. And a lot of the companies have to put the energy effectiveness rating on the windows. And you want to pay attention to that, because why would you, the normal person, why would you want to get the most energy effective window the money that you have that you can afford.
Right.
And the deal is you need to do a little research on that. Just because that one, you could put, in all actuality, I could go and build a whole subdivision and I could put a different window in every single house and all of them white. And nobody will be able to tell the difference.
They look the same. They be all different.
Yeah, until you get on the inside and really know what you're looking for from the outside, that's just another white window. So there are major differences in windows. There is major differences in quality and construction in that. And the cheaper the window should perk up your ears and say, let me investigate a little bit more. Because again, let's go back to the original mindset. These windows are supposed to be soldiers protecting the inside of your house. And if you put an inferior product in that hole will eventually break down a whole lot faster.
What for the homeowners that are listening right now and watching, what are two things that you would recommend that they ask the contractor?
What type of window are you putting in my house? That's number one. What type of window? Write it down and then Google it. Okay? What is your installation process of the windows? Now, if it's new construction, listen for window tape. Listen for some type of insulation in addition to what's on the windows. If it's replacement windows, what type of caulking do you use? How are you going to put the trim back? Because to replace put a replacement window in, they have to take off the interior, in most cases, the interior trim so they could take out the window that's there, then put the new one in there. What type of insulation are you using? Because not all replacement windows come with insulation. So, and what type of caulking are you using? What type of additional things are you going to do when you install this window to keep from the air or bugs or anything from penetrating inside the home? Those are the two most biggest things that you can do. Even if you don't know what they're talking about, if you ask them that, they at least believe that you watching what they're doing.
Watching what they're doing. Because you're not a dummy out here.
Right, exactly.
And they're trying to get over on you, man. We're building with Blake. We on the show today, man, giving you these tips and things that you need to know. You're thinking about changing some windows, buying some new replacement windows, or even buying a new home. Beginning your new home, we got some questions that you might want to ask, okay? Finally, Mr. Terrence, could you give our listeners a rough idea of typical cost range for window replacement, installation, and what factors might influence the final cost? So right. I guess you can do a one-story house and then do a two-story.
Well, basically the windows are going to be about the same when we're talking about installation, and I'm going to give a beginner's price on that, and I'm going to give the average size. Okay. So I'm not going to get into the realm of crazy sizes, things of that nature. But let's say your average Windows 3050, and pay attention to what I just said.
You said
3050.
3050.
3050 window. You'll hear that in the builder's realm, things of that nature. Essentially what that is a 36-inch wide window, 60 inches tall. And that's the call size that they call it, 3050. So we're talking about a 3050 window. Again, that translates to 36 inches by 60 inches tall. That's your average size window. And when you're talking about new construction, depending on the manufacturer, it could start anywhere from about $200 on the cheaper side, $200 to $300 for that window, for a single hung window. Then it goes up from there, depending on what brand you get in there, more features, things of that nature. As far as the replacement windows, going back to what I talked to you about, they manufacture those windows on United Inches. So they charge by United Inches. So however many inches you got at the top, coming down at the bottom, they charge for that. So essentially, a 37-inch window by 60-inch window costs the exact same thing as a 36-inch by 60-inch window. So 37 by 60-inch and 36 by 60-inch is basically the same price. Okay, and those windows start, when we're talking about those start at about $275 and up.
Okay.
To replace those windows, I've seen in the market anywhere, depending on where it's at, anywhere from $75 to $150 per window to install that. Normally, you won't run into installation issues or installation problem because whoever's building the structure of the house automatically puts the windows up at the same time.
Right.
So normally, your average homeowner only runs into installation costs when they're replacing the windows.
Okay. Information on here, Building with Blake, man. We on the show today. Thank you, Mr. Terrence, for coming on here, giving us some information about windows and how we can make sure that we are properly prepared for protecting our biggest investment as our home, as our baby, is where we living at. Making sure that the water's not getting through the windows, making sure the air's not going through there, and make sure your light bill is not high as hell, okay? Can you give us some information on how can they get in contact with you?
Again, reach out to us. Put your comments or whatnot on this particular radio show, or you can call me at my store, 931-388-3612, or reach out to me, email shopperlumberyard@yahoo.com. That's SHAPARD, lumberyard, all one word, at yahoo.com. That'll come straight to me, directly to me. And I just encourage individuals to look more closely at where they live, how to maintain their products, the products in their homes, maintain rental properties, maintain their investments. And if you don't quite understand, just tune in to us. Build It Blake. We simplified my name, didn't we?
Yeah,
we trimmed it down. We trimmed it down.
Build with Blake, baby.
We trimmed it down.
With Blake.
Tune in and we'll give you and point you in the right direction to help you gain a knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to continue to grow.
Follow me on Instagram as well. I am DJ CDUB. That's I am DJ CDUB. You can follow us Streets993 on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Hit the subscribe button. And thank you guys for joining us on the show, Building with Blake, right here on Streets 99.3.